Good morning, everyone. I am CA Shruti Gupta, moderator for 32nd Valuation Manthan session, Valuation and ESG, organized by the Valuation Standard Board of ICAI. We are delighted to welcome you all to an educating journey through valuation expertise. I am delighted to welcome our speaker, Dr. Kishore Nuthalapati ji. Thank you, sir, for gracing us with your presence. Sir is a corporate finance professional and an economist with 25 years of experience. He holds ranks in PhD Finance, MBA, MCom, and LLM. And he's also a qualified company secretary. He is an expert in corporate finance, project finance, PPP projects, venture capital, credit, legal, accounting, and HR. His employment and association include Ocean Sparkle, Meghraj Bank, ICICI, ILNFS, etc. Currently, he is serving as a director at Beacom Infra Projects Private Limited. He received Best CFO awards from several organizations, including Economic Times, ET Now Awards. He has delivered various talks in different locations in India, Singapore, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Malaysia, Vietnam, Indonesia, Thailand, and South Korea. The list goes on. He has delivered sessions for civil servants, commissioners, government officials, regulators, bankers, chartered accountants, company secretaries, cost accountants, advocates, investment bankers, stockbrokers, and so many more other people. He has conducted sessions at various institutes, including ISBs and IIMs. He has authored more than 70 articles in leading publications and guided 1,000 plus research projects. Thank you so much, sir, for gracing us with your presence. We are all eager to learn from you. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Sriti ji, and thank you, Dimple ji, and special thanks to Rahul ji. Of course, my formal thanks to chairperson, chairman, vice chairperson, and all the leadership of the Institute Valuation Standards Board, and also the committee which has taken so much of pain in organizing such valuable programs for the benefit of all of our members. Then with the brief thanking note from my side, with your permission, I take the share screen and then we proceed. I'm sure the slide is visible.
Yes, sir, it is perfectly visible.
Yes. Thank you. Small disclaimer, because I'm part of media very regularly, so not to reflect that we are speaking about that media or whatever. Fine. Fine. Before we discuss the valuation, as a valuer, let me tell you, if I have to value an asset, I spend around 70 to 80% in understanding the asset. It could be a business, it could be a specific asset. Then the balance 15 to 25% I spend in the computation part. So the more you understand about an asset, the better and the realistic will be the valuation of the asset by you. It is not just the financial knowledge, it's not just the valuation knowledge, it is the knowledge of an asset. There is a saying in China, which most of you would have heard. It says, to teach Johnny math, you need to know three things in the same sequence. One, Johnny. Two, teaching. Three, math. Look, you are teaching math, but math is of third priority in the sequence. Similarly, we need to understand the asset, its nature, and then we'll be able to value it correctly or near correct. The concept what we are discussing today has got tremendous relevance. This I don't need to highlight more, because in about 2 weeks time from now, the Conference of Parties, COP28, the global COP28 is being held in Dubai. And at the same time, you would have been viewing videos or reading news that Dubai is flooded with water. Almost 1/4 to 1/3 of it is now sunk in water, all the roads and everything. So we'll have to see when the ESG factors are being discussed, the impact of environmental care, the impact and the need for environmental care and the sustainability development goals are being discussed. We are seeing the adverse impact, what would happen if the care is not there, which is a live example. Also, India has been making a great stride and could prove that it is committed to achieve its NDC committed goals in G20 summits. It could stress and state we are at the forefront in meeting and in achieving these required targets. So, with that background, we can understand what is the relevance of ESG. Still, to make us more clear about what is ESG, we need to understand in the absence of this ESG, what would happen. Let's look at the environment aspect first. The climate turns toxic, and no healthcare or medicines can save your lives. Why are we talking about lives? Across the world, it could be you, me, or a very old person. Unless we speak about two things, it will not sensitize them, excite them, or give them interest. What are those two things? One, life. Two, finance. Finance, money, cash, funds, whatever you use it as a synonym. So, unless life and finance are touched, nothing is so interesting. Everything else will fall into these two categories at the end of the day. Therefore, every aspect of even be it SDG, ESG, or CSR, everything again relates to the life and the finance. In the absence of environment, biodiversity will be lost. The nature strengths, the immunity for human beings will be lost. Today we are talking about 120 to 120 years lifespan for human beings. So the Sapiens, all the research happening, the SoftBank betting, rather pledging 200 billion on research on the drugs to cater to human beings who would live between 120 to 180 years lifespan. These all are true testimonies that the lifespan has been increasing, but then it has to be a healthy lifespan. When will the healthy lifespan exist? Only when immunity is higher. It's not that you want to live old for a long time, isn't it? Your childhood and youth have got finite periods. Post 40 or post 50, or maybe let me be realistic today, post 60, you are old. 61 is old, 121 is also old. What gets extended is not childhood, is not youth life, it is old age. The longer the old age is, the more immunity you would require. Otherwise, you lead an unhealthy life, which is not required. Therefore, immunity is the most important thing, which finds place in climate, biodiversity, or the pollution aspects, or the intake what we take in terms of food, in terms of water, etc. And the hygiene what we have because of the waste management or the disposal and reusage, etc. That's the care what we relate to environment. Then the social effect. This is the highest requirement for the world, but most complex in terms of quantifying. Social aspect is all about the relationships, respect, equality, gender fairness, all those things. It's not so easy to explain what they are, and it is very difficult, if not impossible, very difficult to quantify what is good. It's an abstract thing. It's like respect, love, etc., which can't be so easily quantified. However, we have to list out what are broad social aspects covered under the ESG thing. One, health and safety in the absence of social effect, human rights violation and labor relations strain, and the income inequalities or class inequalities or hierarchical inequalities could be wider, and the community adversities will challenge the division of labor. Every country, every region may think of self-sustaining a pattern, in which case the division of labor will be absent or will be lower, and the economies of scale, what are today enjoyed, all of the oil or majority of the oil, edible oil, coming from Ukraine, Russia, and Indonesia, etc. places, and most of the textiles and back-end works coming from India, Vietnam, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Philippines, etc. And the most of the electronic items coming from China, and most of the advanced electronic components and software coming from US, the machines coming from Germany. How did these all happen? Because of economies of scale, division of labor, and because every person or every life would require every component, all the components are flowing from every part of the world to other parts, and therefore the whole world became a unified family. And if only community adversities, regional geopolitical stress exists, then this division of labor, economies of scale will be absent. We don't know if life exists on any other planet. Earth could become multiple planets with each country not knowing where and if another country is also existing. And supplier relationships, of course. If you don't respect your suppliers, if you don't pay them timely, if you don't consider them fairly, and if you don't give them a transparent information, and if you think about only legal litigation and dispute mechanism, then of course your supplier relationships will be strained. There are many companies, I don't name them, you know them. They have goodwill, huge goodwill, and you are now thinking about the top 4 or 5 companies in India or in the world also. Huge goodwill, fantastic brand image. Wherever you go, their logo, their name will be seen, heard, spelt. But some of them lack one important aspect, which is also known to you. That is trust. So long as there is no trust, unless there is no alternative, they would come to you. The day they find alternative, your suppliers, your employees, and your other stakeholders will disassociate with you. Similarly, governance. Governance is, of course, one of our regular discussion points because of corporate governance. Of course, the other two also because we have been speaking about CSR. But then it's more about corporate governance. Therefore, this is one of our left-hand topics, what we can discuss offhand and anytime at any length. Then what is the effect of governance in the ESG? In the absence of care for governance, you would find skewed decisions. Someone like Elon Musk making a very exotic decision, and then you have found some ads in the papers. Board gives one ad stating, we need an executive assistant, PA, personal assistant, to control the temper of CEO. That is the responsibility of the personal assistant. Why? Because he would make exotic statements and then cause 200 billion loss for the company one day, earn 100 billion gain another day, and launch one project at another day. All exotic things. Of course, with due appreciation to him for the value what he has been creating and the path-breaking technologies he brought to the world. Then shareholder rights will not be respected. And when shareholder rights are at stake, you will see the wealth will be lost. We may be taking some names of companies, but with all respect and only to highlight that there is scope for improvement for them, and either institute or valuation standards board or the participants or speaker and organizers are not criticizing any of the organization. Recently, you have seen that when Vedanta had some corporate events, suddenly it has seen loss of wealth. How much huge loss of wealth? And they had to recast their financial plan post loss of wealth. And corruption. If there is no governance, of course, opaqueness will be prevalent, will be wide. And when opaqueness prevails, you don't know anything, authenticity or validity of any transaction will not be known. And tax contributions will reduce. This is one of the very finest aspect which many would not understand. When there is no governance, when the governance is less or is not effective at the corporate level, at the government level, the tax contributions will be far lower. Then, of course, the political business connections could go to any extent, to an extent where you can't sever them. Then executive compensations will be on a different basis than as stated basis than transparent. And board independence, of course. You will have a board, will not have rights or will not have independence, which you've been seeing. Considering these things, the ESG as a concept, the three concepts merging together, ESG as a concept has come to the fore. The summary of environmental is climate, biodiversity, greenhouse gas emissions, water consumption, pollution, all those things. And for social, the inequality, the human rights, supplier relationships, and labor relationships, and the health and safety of all the stakeholders who are involved in it, and the diversification, which is the biodiversity, what we spoke about. Then the governance, of course, the anti corruption, and then the business political disconnection, the transparency, then opaqueness, then the compensation being fair, transparent, and disclosed, and of course, the board independence, what is of utmost importance. So, if ESG as a concept has got so much of importance, when has it come into the public domain? When has it become a formal concept for the world at large? It was in COP21 meeting, which is called, it is Conference of Parties, 21st meeting. Broadly, widely across the world, it's called COP21. COP21, not our certificate of practice. So COP21 meeting has taken a vow, and in that meeting, the Paris Agreement was executed by all the members. About, if I'm not wrong, about 87, 85 members of 196, 197 countries, close to half have signed it, and subsequently many have also joined it, and others are also in line with the same terms of the agreement in terms of adherence or in terms of adoption. Now, what did they state as a targets or as a requirements? By the way, COP21 did not use the word ESG, but they resonate with what ESG are. And in November 2016, when Paris Agreement came into force, at the time of announcement of its implementation, adoption, members' commitment, widely, loudly, ESG was spoken. Although the agreement per se did not use the word ESG, at the adoption level, at the enforcement level, it was discussed and been part of Paris Agreement. Today, if you say Paris Agreement, the next word that will come is ESG. COP21, Paris Agreement. You don't need to say Paris Agreement 2015. There are many Paris Agreements, but today Paris Agreement means very, very specifically COP21 and ESG only. That's the importance it has gained because of the importance of the concept per se. They said the pre-industrial levels had some global warming, and the pre-industrial levels plus 2 degrees Celsius is all what we would tolerate. And if required, we would bring it down to 1.5 only, which means because of industrial activity, the global warming could stretch up to 2 and better up to 1.5 degrees Celsius only. What does it do? It will reduce the greenhouse gas emissions in the world. Then the climate justice and safety, which is the S factor. What did they say? We always discuss what is equality, what is equity as a professional. So equality is not equity. What is better? Equity is better than equality. In a house or in a family of, let's say, 6 members, food is not served as per the money they earn and contribute to the family. It is not. One spouse may earn more, another slightly less or nothing also, earn from outside. And father, grandfather may not be earning, may have retired, and grandma also may have retired, and the kids may be earning or studying. Now, you will not go by the principle of finance or the principle of money distribution and then serve them food or give them amenities and give them care only as per their revenue earning capacities. How do you give them? As per their requirements. Grandpa requires some medicines and then some special treatment, you give it. Father requires certain things, you give them. Mother requires certain things, you give them. And kid who is not contributing at all, she also needs food, isn't it? She is part of the family. She will be given food. and the son who would be earning or studying will be given, which means your responsibilities and capabilities could be different, but all of you are working for the common prosperity of the family, of the unit. It could be country, it could be our nation, it could be country, it could be the world. The responsibilities and capabilities are as per the abilities of each of the country or the nation, and then they are set as your targets or as your commitments. Those are what you have to achieve. Therefore, it is not equality, it is equity. Equity is fair, isn't it? It is fair to expect the kid to study well. She can't be expected to make money spending her valuable study time. It's not possible to expect your grandpa to make money when he has already earned and set a family and is now expected to take a rest or is in retirement phase like that. Then the G factor, the transparency and accountability. So the frameworks are established, suggested, and call was given to the nations at large to adopt these frameworks so that it will address the social and environmental aspect, also the other aspects of transparency, accountability, and anti-corruption, and the board or the stakeholders' rights being ensured, etc. For these three, the financial mechanism is suggested. As we discussed a while before, like a family, developing countries may not have the finance to invest and to capitalize and to implement projects or programs requiring huge capex, because their priorities will be to feed their citizens and to continue the developing initiative. They can't afford to divert the capital from the food or the basic needs to a big program or a huge capex involving project or a program. Therefore, who should support this? The developing nations need support from developed nations. So the EMs are emerging markets, which we call our EMEs, emerging market economies, like India, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, Vietnam, all these countries would require financial support from the DMs, developed markets, such as US, Europe, the Americas, the Europes, etc. And partly Oceania also. If you have had a chance to read the news day before yesterday, I found two striking news items that resonate with this program. Number one, 2023 year, the developed nations have supported $100 billion to developing nations and met their commitment of funding $100 billion a year to developing nations for the purpose of sustainability development goals achievement and ESG achievement. Then the other aspect, what was prominently discussed and included in the Paris Agreement COP21, was involve the private sector players as well. It could be business, investors, individuals like you and me, everyone. Oh, so much was discussed at the Paris? Yes, it was. What if it is not given so much of care? When it is not contributing immediately, it is not translating immediately into gains or into reduction of the cost. Why should we bother so much about it, have so much of concern? The need can be exemplified with few headline points. Number one, British Petroleum, which you know is one of the world's, is among the three world's largest oil companies, along the likes of the Aramco and Novama, etc., Nayara, etc. What happened? The Horizon oil spill in one of the deep waters of the port caused something like 10 lakh crores loss to the world. In Indian rupees, 10 lakh crores. Because it may take hardly 10,000 to 15,000 crores to build a good airport, seaport. But should there be an oil spill and a fire eruption, the loss could be more than 1.5 lakh crores. It will be almost impossible to contain it and to bring it down in about 3 to 7 months' time, at least. Then Volkswagen, all of us know that this is of recent origin, hardly about 8 7 years. Then of course they still been paying some of the penalties, and they had the emissions scandal. They did not explain, they did not disclose that there are emissions. They said like a tick mark. Are you a male? Yes. Are you a female? Yes. Come on, what is this? So we don't care. We just tick every box, whatever is given. Do you want to pay? Yes. Do you want to do you require subsidy? Yes. All contradicting, because it's not tick box thing, and then we go in a rush to tick everything and to state or to declare everything is completed. So they did not divulge the emissions problem, and later when it was out, they've agreed and paid $15 billion. 15 billion into around 8,300, 8,400. You can imagine it's close to what? Close to 1 lakh crore. 1 lakh crores. Imagine a company agreeing and paying 1 lakh crores towards fines and costs. Then Wells Fargo, one of the top 5 banks in US, on the in the lead of, along with the league of New York Bank, then Merrill Lynch, Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, and New York Bank. These banks, it agreed to pay close to 25,000 crores Indian rupees to settle some charges because there were some fake accounts scandals. Similarly, Meta, all of us know that it has already agreed to pay 5 billion, and many more claims are being recorded by the liquidator. And Boeing crisis, all of you know, and it happened then, but it is still continuing, because whenever there is an issue, you are still trying to understand, was it that crisis still persisting? We have come to a different slide, and after this we'll take a small pass. But before we take a pass, we have to understand what are the questions or challenges that have been posed on this ESG concept. I wanted this as a poll, but I realize we are close to 3,000, 4,000 members. It will not be easy for our organizers, however smart they are, although they may be having computers, calculators, all that stuff. Still, it will be difficult. So I just chose to put them as questions for your understanding. Is ESG concept known and appreciated? Yes or no to you? Is it an adherence or a compliance? At the moment, it is adherence, because there are no standardized rules or regulations which are quantifying ESG. Therefore, it is adherence than compliance. When will it become compliance? When there is a regulatory requirement, legal requirement, and the non-compliance will entail penalties, punishments, or some action measures. Only then will it become compliance matter. As of now, it is still adherence matter. Is government itself on its own really reasonably compliant with ESG? I'll not say no, I'll not say yes. You know it best. And is ESG as an additional asset itself, or is it a feature of an asset? You're talking about power project, thermal power, hydel nuclear power, and run of the river power within hydel, or solar and wind renewable power. So is it a feature, or is it an asset in itself? It is both. It could be an additional feature, it could be an additional asset also. Is preference to invest in ESG compliant companies widely spread? It was not. It was not. But now it has been spreading very widely. Very widely. We'll see a couple of statistics going forward. Can ESG be recognized as an asset for inclusion in our balance sheet? This all of you know. At the moment, it is not possible for 2 reasons. Number one, there is no standardized approach to capitalize the value what you are incurring to build the feature called as ESG. Assuming there is an approach, assuming, still it may not be possible, because any intangible asset, self built by organization cannot be recognized as an asset as per our accounting standards. It will assets in your balance sheet. Can you not? You can. Well, when you acquire all of these things, although it can be stated on the paid to an external party at the moment, be it call it loophole, call it shortfall, call it fairness, that self-built assets, if they are intangibles, cannot be capitalized into the balance sheet and reported as an asset. And what if you are after you to collect their tax, because section 9 says anything that you receive is revenue, prove it otherwise. It could be anything except certain things, of course. By the way, if you have an intangible asset self-built, like the examples what we spoke, let's say the brand, let's say a trademark or patent or entitlement, etc. On the right side under assets head, if you could sign a contract with a third party and the third party commits and pays the stated amount as per the contract into the days, then that's an asset. You'd recognize it as asset because the receivable amounts capitalized part is an asset in your balance sheet. So it has variations, what all of you know. Also, what we have summarily discussed now. Would ESG features enhance value of an asset? Yes. End of the business? Yes. So if they enhance, what percent? I can't answer it. Are there approved valuation methods for valuing ESG adherence? I didn't say compliance, adherence. At the moment, no. But are there any suggested valuation methods? Yes, at the moment. Do ESG valuations create realizable gains for the investors while exiting? Yes. To what extent? At to be asset tied. Can existing or the evolving regulations achieve a level playing field? At the moment, no. But what we are striving and what the professional bodies, the GOPLAC or whatever, all are striving is to achieve this level playing field so that valuation can be certain and trustworthy. We take a small pause and then I show you a small video. Hope the video is visible.
No, sir, it is not.
No, ma'am.
No, it is not as of now.
Not
the PPT.
Okay, PPT is still visible. Okay. 1 second, ma'am. 1 second. I'm sorry. New share. Is it, ma'am?
No, sir, not yet. We can see a screen wherein is the video named Mother Nature Apple Resolve.
Yes.
So I can see the name, but the video is still not visible.
Oh, how do I this one? New share. Oh, okay, I will do one thing. I'll just close the presentation. Now, I'm sorry, I should have tested it before than wasting time.
So maybe you can stop sharing your screen and then open the video and then share the screen with the opened video.
Yes, ma'am. I think so. I will do that. Sorry. Very sorry. Is it visible now, ma'am? Is it visible now, ma'am?
Sir, it is visible, but there is no sound.
Sound I have already. Oh. Is the sounds there?
No, sir, not yet.
Okay. How do I do? Oh my God. Hmm. Now, ma'am. Now, ma'am.
No, sir, the sound we cannot hear it.
So how do I do that? Can you guide me?
Sir, even I'm not sure. Maybe there's an option to share sound. I'll have to check.
I'm sorry. I should check this. It was coming before. Not my. Fine. I will just maybe you can check how to achieve this, and then with your guidance, I will do it later, and then we'll proceed without wasting time. I will go to.
Sure, sir.
We are in questions of challenges. Is this slide visible, ma'am?
Yes, sir. Slide is visible.
Okay, thank you. Fine. So these set of details explain us what is the emergence and magnitude of ESG in the world. Of course, this data is about 2.5 years, 2 years old, 2 years old as it got reported, and mostly it looks like it is for the European and American markets, but it also considers the data set of the eastern part. Now, 88% of publicly traded companies and the investors have ESG initiatives in place as of now. More than 3 out of 4 small and mid caps also have a purpose statement for ESG. 1 out of 5, around 18.5% of small and mid cap SMEs are today using ESG standards, such as we will come to this SDGs, Global Reporting Initiative, and Sustainable Accounting Standards Board about them a bit later. 1 in 4 Standard and Poor 500 companies which have conducted their earning calls in 2020 Q4 have used the word ESG. And today it must be more in magnitude, in stress and number. More than 200 companies have signed the climate pledge. A few of them in India also have signed the climate pledge. I'm not counting only Nestle or etc., which are anyway MNCs, although they are in India. Even Indian homegrown MNCs also have signed the pledge as of now. Then 80% of the world's largest companies are reporting exposure to the market transaction risks associated with the climate change, and therefore it will be transparent for you to understand, are they having concern towards the SDGs, sustainable development goals, and ESG, etc. The climate related weather events are expected to cost all the businesses about 1.3 trillion. 1.3 trillion is about a tad greater than 1% of world's GDP. 1% of world's GDP. And as a finance professional, each of you knew what would happen if 1% GDP comes down. So 1% GDP is a huge number, be it in India or be it at the world level. 76% of consumers say they will stop buying from companies if they do not have the social aspect and the ESG aspect in their operations. By the way, day before yesterday, one of the prominent survey reported across the financial newspapers stated that Indians are willing to pay up to 20% high price if the sustainability factor, the ESG factor is addressed by the companies in their products or operations, 20% more. Okay. Then the SDGs, which we have been speaking about, Sustainable Development Goals. So if only these are implemented, if they are implemented, and towards the implementation, the opportunities what would be open are 12 trillion a year. 12 trillion is something close to 3.2, 3.5 times of Indian GDP. Indian GDP is about 3.72 trillion, and 12 trillion a year. Of course, this is for the world. And then 38 million jobs. What are we talking? 380 million jobs. 340, 300 actually. And the latest number is 340, unofficial number. 340 billion are the employees in the world. Formal, informal, gig, everything put together. 340 billion employees. And 380 million jobs could be created with this initiative, which means about 0.13, 0.15% additional employment opportunities could be created. And of course, now revenues of majority of the companies are from the SDG compliant operations or initiatives. Same for the next level also. Then ESG strategies are showing impact on the operating profits to the extent of 60%. To the extent of 60%. It is not flat number, it is up to. Then organizations with highest employee satisfaction have ESG scores of higher levels than global averages. So if you're working for a company, and just imagine the plight of an employee who will face the market when the CEO or the company MD is in a financial scam or in some other social evil thing and is arrested or put to some punishment. The morale of all the employees of the company, including the good employee, bad employee, without differentiation, will be low. He has not done anything, she has not done anything. It is one of the leaders who has done something and is under punishment. But every employee will have a lower morale if this kind of situations arise. 88% of the consumers will be more loyal if it is known that the company is, for example, Puma states that we don't use natural leather at all, and therefore it attracts more customers, stating that it is having concern for the environmental care. Then now, does it have impact on the equity returns? Yes, and 63% is the impact over a period of time on the returns or the gains that would emanate from the business if ESG factors are addressed. In the days to come, the reports state that ESG mandated assets, means ESG compliant or adherent, whatever you say, assets would be 35 trillion by 2025. What are the total assets or investments across the world at the moment? 70 trillion, 70 plus, a tad higher than 70 trillion, which means half of the world's investments at the moment could be into ESG mandated assets and growing at the proportionate rate into the future. Then the funding mobilization. Going forward, the green, social, and sustainability bonds, sustainability finance, sustainability linked instruments will be more in number, which we have been evidencing in the past, even in India. Every behemoth organization, be it SBI, be it other companies, they've all been raising green bonds, social bonds, sustainability bonds. And in the recent past, if you see, there are billions of dollars which are raised even by Indian companies in the name of these bonds, meant for compliance for these things. IFC, the World Bank's private arm, is betting big, even on India, to support capital with a lower coupon if the asset or the business is ESG compliant. And a lot of asset managers say ESG is a high priority, of course. And from the European area, the region, they are more concerned. By the way, Europe is concerned better ahead as far as ESG is concerned at the moment, and they have relatively more concern to report what is ESG in a standardized format or transparent format than greenwashing, which some of the companies in India and US do. So when WorldCom scandal has come out, when Enron scandal has come out, you never knew that so much of scandals were happening. It could be even in Volkswagen also, this part of the world. But broadly, they prefer to have a standardized report without greenwashing, or rather to avoid greenwashing. What is greenwashing? There are some companies which would state that they care for environment, they do what they want. There are some companies which make a lot of profits by selling sin goods like tobacco, or let's say the carbonated beverages, or any of those things. And they sponsor social events. They adopt a small traffic island, and they put boards, and they put their brands big in size, big in loud in colors, and they sponsor marathons, they sponsor child awards, etc. And why at all you earn so much of profit from manufacturing, selling sin goods, and use a bit of it, be it 2%, 1%, whatever, a bit of it towards the social cause. Why? Isn't it greenwashing? It is greenwashing in spirit, although in letter it could not be captured as greenwashing. But relatively, this phenomenon is less in European regions. Okay, the reporting provisions by government bodies are increasing, but they have not still been standardized. This is one of the findings of characteristics research agency. All of them are from different research agencies. Yes, there are about 400 reporting provisions in half of the countries in the world at the moment, but not standardized. Then other things, yes, CEOs believe the leadership we covered there. 50% of the companies believe the company performs well if they have ESG concern and environmental metrics are included in their overall targets. And only 39% believe their company performs or is performing well for governance and social issues. In reality, it could be far lower, because the sample size could be 2,000 companies of about the listed leading global odd 65, 70,000 companies. We're talking about 2,000 companies. The sample is very less. And many companies say the corporate silos, the corporate structure, the related policies, and the approvals, they are a barrier to ESG adoption, implementation, or the spirit-wise, the reporting frameworks on ESG. This is important because unless we understand what are the reporting frameworks of ESG, you will not be able to understand if the ESG adherence or compliance is reported. If reported, is it in a standard format? And if it is in standard format, then you will be able to evaluate it. So UN, by the way, we understood, I think I forgot to state that part. It was United Nations which coined the word ESG in one of its deliberations in 2004. 2004. So you can imagine ESG is hardly 20 years old as a concept, as a wholesome concept. Then it is COP 21 in 2015, Paris Agreement, which we have heard, the commitment and the contributions which are required as targets or achievable things are set, or rather committed. It is from 2016 that these commitments implementation has commenced. So we're talking that this concept as a wholesome concept is hardly 6 plus years old only. Therefore, the reporting frameworks have not ensued, and therefore institutes like ours and others across the world could not standardize a reporting framework, or standardize a valuation framework, or standardize the guidelines for end-to-end implementation. These are few. There are about 80 reporting frameworks, but these are heard across the world. GRI, Global Reporting Initiative, and Sustainability Accounting Standards Board. It is not by coincidence that it is SASB. It is by design. I am not saying deceit. It is by design, structured to sound like FASB, Financial Accounting Standards Board of US. Then, of course, TCFD is one of the popular thing because it is a part of Financial Accounting Standards Board and Financial Stability Board also. IARC is also known. Equator principles are for us, for the lenders. This is slightly different from the other reporting frameworks because equator principles are considered by the lenders to understand what is the extent of ESG compliance, and only if the compliance meets their minimum standard requirements will the lenders lend money to the borrowers. Rest all are reporting. Equator is only for the lenders. You would report as a company, you would report, but is meant for the lenders at large. Yeah. As of now, like your credit rating is there is no rating for ESG. There is no standardized rating. There is no approved rating for ESG. There is no rating for CSR implementation. However, there are rating agencies which have been voluntarily issuing grades for projects, grades for CSR implementation, and grades for branding, and grades for human capital. Similarly, these are the global reputed rating agencies which are assigning ratings on ESG. What are those things? Morgan Stanley Capital International, which is one of the popular financial behemoth, which has been one of the leading research and capital institution. Then Sustainalytics from Netherlands. Formerly it was called as Zanzi. If you remember the world word Zanzi, it is the same organization. Then OICOM became now ISS ESG earlier. Bit of merger and then all that stuff. Then FTSE, the London's Russell, the 2000 index, world's largest sample index is Russell 2000. Then Standard & Poor Global, of course, this is known very widely. We have and Video Iris from France, Robeco from Switzerland, ISS. Again, there are two things actually. There is a repetition, but then there are two arms. Therefore, it got reported separately. Then Morningstar, the research agency. Then CDP, the Carbon Disclosure Project from Europe, UK, which is broadly into the carbon credits, etc. But it also started ESG rating. Now, all of these, not all, of course, except 6, 7, 8, rest all have presence in India also. I'm not sure if 7 is present. Maybe 6 and 8 are the only two not present in India. Rest all have their presence in India also. Then what are the worldwide best companies in ESG adherence? Just for the sake of knowledge and reference. Microsoft, Nestle, Novartis, Unilever, P&G, Siemens, Intel, Salesforce, Cisco, Kering. Kering is, I put the word, the born with Gucci, etc. products, goods owning company. By the way, all of them are present in Hyderabad. I'm sure they are present in other parts of the country as well. Then now comes the investors. If there is no investor, there is no film, and there is no dance, there is no drama, there is no company, there is no project, there is no employment, there is no livelihood. Therefore, investors are as important as a project is, as a program is. These are the world's leading investors taking or betting big positions into ESG sector. They include BlackRock. By the way, it's not Blackstone, it's BlackRock. Blackstone is of recent origin, the past 25 years. It's a split of BlackRock, but BlackRock is the mother of Blackstone in a way, name-wise, if not ownership-wise. By the way, today in India, the largest real estate owning company, commercial assets owning company, is not Godrej, is not DLF, is not Reliance, is not Adani. It is Blackstone. The next second largest is also not any of Indian companies. It is again Brookfield, the Canada origin, London based, US headquartered company. You can imagine now what is the magnitude of the presence of these investors in India. One investment company, it's not even developer. It's not the developer, it's not the contractor, it's not an Indian company. It's an investor company from US, is India's largest commercial real estate assets owning company. You can imagine now what is the magnitude you talk about. Then, of course, Vanguard Group. Vanguard Group is known for what? It's known for the index. The indices are today we talk about Sensex, we talk about Nifty 50, we talk about ESG, NSE ESG. There is an index in fact. Okay, it gives me a reference. NSG has got two indices on ESG. One is NSG ESG, another is NSG Impact something. So index as a concept has come into the fore, into the world because of Vanguard's invention. If I'm not wrong, it is Bogle who invented it. Then State Street Global Advisors, it's a US government sponsored entity, more like a sovereign fund, of course. And GPFG. GPFG is Norway government's pension fund, like Calpers of Canada and like LIC or thing of India. Then UBS from Switzerland, Allianz from Germany, Fidelity from USA, Amundi from France, JP Morgan. Morgan Stanley is also there, but it's in 14th, 15th. We have taken only 10. Invesco from USA and Legim from UK. All of these are present in India very dominantly, not just present, very dominantly. And down here in Hyderabad, very, very dominantly. Occupying huge places, huge offices, a lot of employees, and earning crores of profits. In the last 10 years, 9.5 years, about 6.5 trillion money was raised, 6.5 trillion USD. 6.5 trillion USD was raised for sustainability reason, which is ESG again. Sustainability and ESG are synonyms because sustainability includes impact, climate, green, enviro, all these things. And it is considered as sustainable concept only if it is addressing all the three ESG. Therefore, sustainability is more like synonym for ESG. For ESG, future assets investment avenues, about 6.5 trillion is mobilized from the market. 6.5 trillion. Now, coming to Indian requirement, we mentioned your like a family example, your NDCs, nationally determined contributions which you committed, which you accepted as your commitment to achieve was 162.5 lakh crores by 2030. Next 6 years, each year you will have to spend 30 lakh crores towards ESG adherence. We are not using the word compliance at the moment. Then to achieve net zero emissions by 2070, we're talking about 43 years, 44 years from now, around 716 lakh crores, means 716 trillion rupees, 162 trillion rupees. By the way, what are we actually spending? 3 trillion rupees, means 3 lakh 10,000 crores is being actually spent in 2020. 2021, 22, it was slightly more. 23 numbers aren't out yet. And by the way, into which sectors is the money going so magnanimously? Energy efficiency sector, because there is BBE, Bureau of Energy Efficiency requirements and green building standards requirements and other sustainability requirements which are also hanging on the heads of the corporates as a domicile sword. Then the clean transportation requirements, clean energy. These are the three sectors which are taking substantial part of all of the investments of ESG in India at the moment. These are not all, these are few which I could collect instantly and to share that among the best companies in ESG adherence in India, Infosys, TCS, what do these IT companies do with ESG? Almost less. Therefore, it's easy for them to comply with. If you're talking about the manufacturing companies, it's a challenge. So I would say I would have an appreciable note for someone like Reliance, Mahindra, Asian Paints, Bharti Airtel, NTPC, and HUL than for the IT companies. Maybe I would assign highest appreciation for the PSU, public sector unit NTPC, because it is into power generation. Most of its assets are in thermal power, which means it is the most ESG non-compliant or opposite power projects, of course. Now, Harvard Business Review has conducted a survey and posed these questions to the CEOs, CFOs like you and me, and to the business leaders. Okay, I skip this because some of them are covered in other thing. Now, like our Valuation Standards Board, we have International Valuation Standards Council, and this council is doing annual survey for quite few years. 23 survey is not yet completed. 22 survey was completed, and then the results were out about 3-4 months back. These are the results. Which reporting frameworks are you adopting? 40% said United Nations, 20% said none, or we adopt a mix of them. Global real estate, GRI, what I mentioned to you, and global real estate, both of them are global things. This 17%, and global reporting initiative 10%, and others about 13%. Others means it includes a mix, it includes none, other things also in a way. Who would influence your ESG decisions, commitments, adoption, implementation? Customers, gods, 30%. Investors, the elder brothers, fathers, 23%. Regulators, the police, 21%. Creditors, best friends, 11%. Suppliers, your sub friends, 6%. Competitors, your enemies, 5%. Others, unknown, 4%. This is what the number is, which means it is customers and investors who are the funding providers. Who are investors? They are financiers. Who are customers? Sorry, funders. Who are customers? They are the financiers, because they provide the cost of the product, what you make. Investors are providing the fund for you to make the product. So 53 is coming from those who provide you the funds. Could you estimate the financial impact of ESG in your business budgets or forecasts? Yes, fully 4%, not at all 51%, somewhat and partially 42%. These are the responses from the wide sample what was included by the International Valuation Standards Council when they have conducted annual survey 2022 on ESG and report out 4 months back. The time period you believe that ESG factors will give you cash flows into the future are, when they asked this question, they said 17% said within 12 months we get back the returns. 42% said we get back the returns or the future cash flows in the medium term of 12 to 36 months. And 33% said you don't get them immediately. You get them over a long period, which is after 36 months. And 8% said you may not get, I'm not sure. And it is not for the returns or future cash flows that you are adopting ESG. It's for your own commitment. So that's 8%. The extent ESG factors are considered in the valuation process and in the valuation reports. 25% said we are not considering. 35% said yes, marginally we are considering. 22% said yes, we have given importance. It's reasonably considered. 12% said it is an essential coverage in our valuation process and report. We assign importance to the ESG factors in our evaluation process and in the reports. And 6% said, in a way, this plays a very dominant role. That is what they said when they say more. Which regions have higher ESG disclosures? We spoke a while before. Europe has got the highest disclosure adoption at the moment, 50%. The Americas, the Latin, the South, North Americas, 27%. Asian, the eastern part, we including us, 8%. Oceania, 14 countries. Australia, New Zealand, Tonga, all those countries, they have about 8%. Middle East, the Gulf part, 7%. Then, is the info disclosed, reported by the listed companies in their annual reports and other disclosures sufficient to assess your ESG adoption and for the inclusion in your valuation process and in your report? Answer from majority, no. Very few said yes. What's the source of information on ESG of companies for using in the valuation process? This is like a question to me. Dr. Kishore, are you good? Yes, sir. Are you better than many? Yes, sir. So do you help others? Yes, ma'am. Do you earn enough? Yes, ma'am. So you ask all those questions to me. I'm sure you'd not get negative. You'd get everything in affirmation. Same is applied here. The source of information on ESG programs, compliance, etc., is from the management of the companies. Majority of the source. There itself, there itself, there is a loophole. It has to be by a certifying agency. It has to be in a standard reporting format. And unless a professional like you and me certifies it and confirms that ESG factors are implemented, adopted, and therefore the reporting is authentic, there is no point in taking what management claims, rather boasts. Our present international valuation standards dealing with the specifically with the values responsibilities to consider ESG in valuation process. Are values required? If required, what should be considered by the valuers? Is there a guideline at the moment? And are their responsibilities disclosed so that they'll not be at fault subsequently for any deviation if claimed? At the moment, no clarity. Has ESG adoption and valuation evolved? Or is it evolving? Or is it yet to evolve? Many said they have evolved partly and are evolving and would evolve completely in the few years to come because of the mad rush and the required mad rush what we are seeing in ESG aspects. Now we come to the ESG valuation, the core topic of all. Because we've discussed 75% is all what we have to understand about the asset. Because we have to understand journey and teaching, then we can start the math, the subject. Now, to summarize some of the key aspects, few in number, we have understood and concurred that ESG is not a physical asset. It is a feature which will help not necessarily the company only, the business only, but the world at large, the ecosystem at large. In turn, the business being part of the ecosystem and the environment would also get benefited along with other stakeholders of the economy. And the capitalization and the efforts and the initiation, implementation, adoption, and ensuring adherence, compliance, whatever, will all be the responsibility of this business. But there is no asset per se in physical form in the name of ESG. Still, because it's a feature which has potential to get incremental revenues, it can be considered as an asset or a feature of an asset. And we can proceed to assign valuation for the business. Asset, the definition of asset is one of my favorite topics. Our institute, ICAI has given, Mother Institute has given beautiful definition of asset. It's in line with the global definition as well. What's an asset? An asset is a resource controlled by an enterprise as a result of past events from which future economic benefits are expected to flow to the enterprise. Therefore, whatever holds value, yielding benefits in the days to come in the future, can be qualified and reported as an asset. What is the quantification? That is the question, what we have to work out when you work out each and every specific asset or the feature. Now, unless you consider ESG as an asset. When can you consider? At the moment, can you? By law, you cannot. Regulation doesn't allow us, but the regulations are expected to take proper shape to allow us to value the ESG aspect in the days to come. Unless it can be considered as an asset by law also, rather regulation also, it cannot be completely defined, measured, and valued. Unless it can be valued, capital allocation will not be optimal. And I understand, I can just guess that you understand the depth of capital allocation. How would the capital allocation happens in the business? Be it on human capital, be it on physical assets, be it on intangible assets, including your promotion, branding, advertisement. The beautiful lad may come and advertise for a Zem. A handsome cricketer may come and advertise. Your huge, attractive boarding or a video could be promoted. In fact, by the way, I wanted to refer this to the Apple's video, and I fumbled because the sound wasn't there. And without sound, it doesn't have any impact. Therefore, I will try a while later again. All of these things.
Sir, do you want to play the video? We can try with the sound.
Oh, when after this, ma'am, after this.
Sure.
After this, after a while. I couldn't do that before, but could you understand what could have been the shortfall at my end?
So there are a couple of options that we can try. So few of our participants have shared that there is an option to share sound when you share the screen. So,
very good. Very
good. So there's a checkbox and you can tick on the checkbox and the sound will be shared.
Then I think I'll just do that. I'll try because that would give us, okay, this is the real participation. Fine. So where do I take?
So whenever you share the screen,
Haji, share the screen.
And you select the video, there's an option, there should be an option to share sound as well.
I've put the video, then I've gone to this, then I am doing sharing. Is the screen visible, ma'am, now? Video?
So screen is visible, but the sound is still not. We're not.
Yeah. I'm just checking where is this sound. It is saying sound, yes.
No, sir. So when you shared the screen,
Haji,
was there an option to share sound as well?
No, I think so.
On the screen share option.
1 second. Mute. Not control. Mute. That screen is there. Audio is ticked. Audio is ticked as well.
Sorry, audio is?
Audio is ticked. It is ticked. It is showing.
The web was however I wanted it to.
Yes, sir. Now the sound is visible. The sound is audible now.
Oh, is it? Oh, I didn't do anything. Oh, my God. Okay, fine. Right. Thank you.
So it is not audible now. It was audible for a while.
Oh, is it? Oh my God. Oh.
Already carbon neutral thing, right?
Yeah, all yours.
So now it is audible.
Okay, yeah.
Welcome to Apple. Welcome to Apple. Hi, I'm Tim.
She should be here any minute.
How is the weather coming in? Hi, I'm Tim.
Yeah, I'm gonna do the office's already carbon neutral thing, right?
Yeah, all yours.
I hope we didn't keep you waiting.
Mother Nature, welcome to Apple. How was the weather getting in?
The weather was however I wanted it to be. Let's cut to the chase. In 2020, you promised to bring Apple's entire carbon footprint to zero by 2030. Henry David Thoreau over here said we have a profound opportunity to build a more sustainable future for the planet we share.
I think our 10 o'clock said the same thing.
They all do. All right. This is my third corporate responsibility gig today, so who wants to disappoint me first?
Well, we've got some updates we're excited to share with you.
Materials, status.
Is there a materials person here?
Yes, we are in the process of eliminating all plastic from our packaging by the end.
Let me guess. 50 years from now when someone else is left holding the bag?
By the end of next year, actually.
When we're also currently using 100% recycled aluminum in the enclosures of all our MacBooks, Apple TVs, Apple Watch.
What about iPod Shuffle? It's a joke. Don't you people make Ted Lasso?
Oh, that's a different group.
We're also phasing out leather in our iPhone cases.
What about Brando over there? They phasing you out too?
Oh,
What's next?
electricity.
Electricity, status.
We're operating on 100% clean electricity.
What runs on 100% clean electricity?
Every Apple office, store, and data center runs on clean electricity, thanks to you and your powerful wind and sun.
And Apple offices are already carbon neutral.
This building is carbon neutral?
Oh yeah, we do it with a mix of clean energy and eliminating greenhouse emissions. It's kind of like if you were to...
You're seriously explaining carbon neutrality to Mother Nature?
Right, no, I'm sorry.
You want to tell me how photosynthesis works too? Don't.
Also, over 300 suppliers have committed to using 100% clean, renewable electricity.
What's next?
Transportation.
I'm proud to report that we're shipping more products by ocean rather than air, which reduces transportation emissions by 95%.
95%? Not too bad.
I'm also happy to report that we're investing in projects around the world that protect the Earth's soil, plants, and trees.
Everyone says they're planting trees.
We've planted forests.
Oh, hello.
Where?
Paraguay, Brazil.
What, are you trying to save the tropical savanna?
Yes. And we've also restored mangroves in Colombia.
What else?
Grasslands in Kenya.
Why?
Our aim is to permanently remove carbon from the atmosphere.
What about your water usage?
We've reduced it.
By how much?
63 billion gallons.
63 million?
Billion.
As you can see, we've innovated and retooled almost every part of our process to reduce our impact on the planet. But there's still a lot more work to do.
And there's something else we wanted to share with you.
You're not trying to bribe Mother Nature with Apple swag.
It's Apple's very first carbon neutral product.
I want to see you do more of this.
You will.
When?
By 2030, all Apple devices will have a net zero climate impact.
All of them?
All of them.
They better.
They will.
Okay, good. See you next year. Don't disappoint your mother.
So this new video advertisement of Apple, I'm not part of Apple thing. By the way, I don't use Apple also. When it was out 2 months back, there was a lot of appreciation. Of course, there will be, and there was a lot of criticism also. Criticism about Octavia being used as Mother Nature, Tom Cook himself being like a hero, and some said where is the representation from around the world in the participants at the meeting, etc., all those things. But then keeping those trivial criticisms aside, they chose a very popular medium to communicate what they're achieving in this ESG domain. And that point reached everyone. You're asking me, let's say you're asking me, do you have an iPhone charger? At the meeting, you have asked me. And have you really asked, or have you also communicated something else? If you sensitively understand, more than asking for a charger, you have communicated to everyone at the table that you have iPhone. This medium was chosen in that line, inviting, expecting as much criticism as it could come, so that as the criticism comes, everyone will watch it and will understand, oh, and then with the oh aspect, wow aspect, they will appreciate the efforts of the company in adhering to the ESG requirements. By the way, if you recollect, in our list of top ESG compliant companies, Apple is not there. By the way, in spite of so much of the claim by the company, it's not there. And that's not the list what I have created. We have taken from the list of all the rating agencies lists. And I just did a compilation. Partly some AI tools helped me, some young professionals like you helped me. I just did a counter check to understand, and then I compiled. And Apple is not in the part of the top 10, in spite of being $1 trillion company. By the way, fine. Now we move on. So that was the video what I wanted to show to you. Ma'am, am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're audible.
Okay, okay. Fine. So we just discussed about concept of asset, how ESG at the moment is not an asset, and we expect the regulation to get modified, to stand modified, and consider the flexibility to allow ESG be defined, recognized. We have identification, recognition, and valuation and disclosure. If you understand our accounting standards, theme and the sequence, then the valuation could happen. The moment there is a scope for valuation from the regulatory perspective, capital allocation will happen in a fantastic way. It is the capital allocation what will decide about the future of the business. So this second point we discussed when we were discussing about the questions or the challenges. Now, any asset should be subjected to the test of impairment. ESG is like a goodwill. It's not royalty. It's not a trademark which will give you some benefits in the future. You're stating you have contributed as you spent so much of money on ESG adherence, and therefore there is an asset which is allowed to be recognized in your balance sheet. Then how will it be subjected to test of impairment? Your goodwill, what you earn in the past, should remain as an asset forever. Would it? Sometimes no. What are the examples? Many. Today, does S-Bank command the same goodwill it commanded earlier? No. Even if it sponsors all of the sports in the world, if it could, it will still not be able to command the same goodwill what it had earlier. Therefore, ESG also could be put to the test of impairment, but systematized approach, standardized approach, guidelines to do that, how to do that are required so that we will not fumble on adopting our guessworks in valuing or in subjecting it to impairment. And an asset is worth either when it gives you revenues over a period of time or at once. At once is generally when you sell the asset. Over a period of time is when you operate and derive the revenues in the years to come. If ESG is an asset, it should be capable of liquidation. But your goodwill can't be sold. You could lose your goodwill, but how could you sell your goodwill? If only you have a brand logo like pharma or FMCG companies. By the way, if you remember, I've shown you a company name. Kering. I'm sure 90% of our young professionals may not have heard Kering name, but 100% of you would have heard Gucci brand, isn't it? So Gucci is more popular than Kering. If Gucci is put for sale, there would be many to come and purchase. If Kering is put to sale, there may not be many to purchase unless Kering owns Gucci brand also. That kind of features are possible in intangible assets. If only it has a specific identification, it could be liquidated and sold. Then how do we amortize or devalue? Because these are intangible assets. And what would be the cost of ESG assets like your ESOPs or like your goodwill, etc. when you sell the brand value or the non-compete, which have no cost? How do you derive the cost or account for the cost to arrive at the tax gains and then pay tax? And which methods of valuation should you adopt to value the ESG assets? It is the last point what we are now discussing. There are no standards at the moment to value ESG assets. There is no clarity if ESG is an asset, as I told you, but it has come into the vogue and is accepted by all the players in the industry that ESG is an asset equivalent. Is an asset equivalent. Will it be an asset or not is dependent on the way the regulations are evolving, which are fast evolving, very fast evolving. As we spoke just now, in a 2 weeks time from now, the COP28 is happening in Dubai. I wish the subsequent COP would happen in India. In G20, recently, the 30th November, we will hand over the baton of G20 presidency to, I think it's Brazil. I'm not sure. I think it is Brazil. Yeah, Brazil, because last year it was Indonesia. The coming year it is Brazil. You claimed that India is among the leaders of the world, at the forefront in the world, to ensure not only ESG adherence, but also in standardizing the approaches. Therefore, and our institute being among the topmost institutes in responding to the industry needs in giving guidelines and clarity, for sure is working on this and would come out at least not much later than other similar agencies would come forward. By the way, the UPI mechanism, the Aadhaar card mechanism, the CBDC, the central bank digital currency mechanism, then the CSR as a tax or tax cum cess cum feature, moral tax. These all things have come either first or among the first in India, in the world. In spite of India being an EME, emerging market economy, we were among the first or the first in most of these things. Something like your CSR, you're the first, Aadhaar, you're the first, like that. And general accounts, you're the first. So for sure, we would see shortly ESG becoming an asset. Now, these methods can be applied once it is an asset. Assuming it is an asset at the moment, let us understand how the valuation could be done. What if it is not an asset? Can we not adopt these things to value ESG? Yes, you can. It is not regulatory required, but it can be the business requirement. If you are purchasing one of the business which is run with hygiene, with social care, and is known as a prominent organization known for its quality or concern for the customers, as it establishes so deeply and strongly into the minds of the customers, they realize that it has already seen 3 generations downward or 4 generations downward. I'm talking about some of the companies which you could visualize and understand the brands what I'm talking about. Even after there was a complete change of ownership from one family to another family, those businesses are still commanding the same volumes of revenues, same profits, market caps. How? Because it is the business requirement. There is no goodwill that is valued and then exchanged. But consumers and investors perceived and accepted that there is an asset in the name of goodwill. although not in the balance sheet on the asset side in your right part, they understood and admitted and are responding and trading the values for that goodwill. Therefore, even now, there is valuation happening and there is a business accepted asset in the name of ESG, and therefore we have to learn and understand and be prepared to be the first run valuers to value the regulatory recognized ESG assets also in the days to come. Then these are the methods. There are many, but these are the topmost discussed methods in most of the researchers by the big four, big eight, or the leading research agencies, etc. And of course, the reporting framework agencies also, which we have seen, the top agencies. There are 80 in a way, but about 10 are the leading. RRM, relief from royalty method. Now, if there is a carbon tax payable by company and you do not need to pay the carbon tax because you have this ESG feature, it relieves you from paying this royalty or equivalent amount. And what all you are not paying and saving, if accounted for and discounted to date, that is the value of the ESG asset or the feature. That's RRM mode. Then MPIN. MPIN is a equivalent of RRM, but the better part in MPIN is you isolate the cash flows which can be achieved with this specific feature of the asset, specific business. So if you are adopting some of the parts method to value a company like ITC, Reliance, Adani Enterprises, or let's say Godrej Group, and if one of the asset or one of the business vertical needs to be kept aside to value, then the isolated cash flows, why ITC is mulling to demerge its tobacco business, hotel business, paper business, hotel is hospitality business, and the other businesses, FMCG business, because it realized that the price earnings multiples are not the same on all, and in the juggling exercise of SOTP, some of the parts exercise, it is put to loss, the market loss, notional loss. Therefore, it chose and has been working on how to demerge these business verticals so that those which deserve, be it IT, be it paper, be it hospitality, be it FMCG, which deserve better valuation, better PE multiples will command better PE multiples, and the sin goods, let's say tobacco goods, will command lower multiple. On the whole, all the shareholders will be better off, and the company will command higher market capitalization. So what is that? It is nothing but MPIN. The multi-period excess earnings method is used before demerger to understand what is the value of each of the assets separately. Then WAV and DIM, both are same. Differential income model explains what is the value of this business when you have this feature, when you don't have the feature. For example, a silly example. There is a shopping mall with a grand escalator and mind mesmerizing high quality mirrors around, and there is an equivalent twin shopping complex without this feature. The returns what you are getting from shopping mall A minus the returns what you're getting from shopping mall B, both being owned by the same developer, I have dramatized. But if you are thinking about the Gurugram 3 malls, the sister malls, yes, that's the same example what I'm talking, but I have dramatized because you have to understand and visualize it. So the difference or the surplus, the additional revenues or additional cash flows what mall A is earning over mall B is the value of the ESG. In that case, the ThyssenKrupp mirror embedded escalator. In our case, it is ESG feature or asset. Then we can also adopt real options modeling. I have given the example as patents. Why patents? You've been working on some virus drug. As of now, there is no virus. Tomorrow, God forbid, touch wood, it will not happen, but luck to you, it would come up. Then suddenly, the patent what you're holding, which never commanded any value, could command a huge value. Huge value. Let us say you have installed chimney in your plant, thinking it is good for you, and today there is no regulation requiring, and tomorrow suddenly regulation will come, and those with which chimney are required to pay lower amount, without chimney are required to pay higher amount. Therefore, you have an option to earn more money by selling that feature. So such are real options modeling. Replacement cost. This is now widely used. So you would like to replace your existing fossil fuel run machine, the motorsport run machine, or let's say diesel run machine. You will replace and you will sell the existing one. What is the environmental additional benefit you are getting, and what is the obsolescence that you are embracing? That is the replacement cost method. So the total replacement cost less obsolescence involved in this asset, that is the replacement cost method, assets value, because obsolescence will have to be deducted when you are capitalizing the replacement cost. The multiples approach, the simple approach, it's a market approach. There is company A which is sold for 100 crores with a multiple of 10 over its revenue. Okay, what is your revenue? 8 crores. Find 8 into 10. 80 crores is your valuation. Simple. Because in the market, there is a multiple which is floating around as an established metric accepted by two parties using in an arm's length transaction using this metric. The same metric could be imported by you, and you can also adopt and arrive at the valuation. Then total value approach, sometimes called as total cost of owning and operations, ownership and operations, but TVA is broadly known, that we see with a different slide. Yes. So what do? In the total value approach, you will value an ESG asset first by understanding what is the financial impact of ESG, by claiming to everyone that you are selling your food items in an environmental friendly casket or environmental friendly cover. If you can get more customers, more revenues, and more loyalty, and more brand image, and more reputation, etc., yes, there is a financial impact. Or by having better equipment, ESG compliant equipment, and employees given better conditions, and they are able to perform better, there is a financial impact on the operations and on the realization or on the conversion of human capital cost into the revenue volumes. Any of those things. Long-term value creation. Sometimes when you have, let's say suddenly there is a concern for the pollution. So what did the government do? It said all diesel vehicles are banned from plying on the roads for next 3 months. Next 3 months. Thereafter, when the situation comes to the control, they could be allowed. But as of now, no. If you are not having that high-speed diesel run vehicle or machine, you don't need to stop your factory, because your machinery is running on not on fossil fuel. It's running partly on solar, partly on electricity, partly on diesel mix blend, partly on ethanol, and therefore you are compliant and you don't need to shut your operations or suspend your operations. You can continue. That gives you the long-term value creation, because when you shut, you have to again invest a lot to rebuild the brand image and the customer lines, etc. Stakeholder alignment. This we spoke a while before. Better relationships, better harmony. Reputation and brand value. In fact, I clubbed this when I discussed the financial impact. But yes, customer loyalty, investors attraction, etc. And risk mitigation. When you have the higher social includes safety and health, if you recollect. So the risk gets mitigated if you embrace social factor as well. Then innovation towards adopting ESG innovative plant. In a competitive manner, if you innovate, innovation has got a value assignment on this feature. Then the better capital can be attracted. When you have a hygiene environment, and when you respect employees, when you have a social factor addressed, and when your environmental concern is appreciated by the people around in the ecosystem, better talent generally would love to work for such companies. And why is Apple and Google, why are Apple, Google, and Meta investing so much on those kind of ads? They want better talent to come and work for them. That is the reason why they're spending. And regulatory compliances. Regulatory compliance will save you money, the fines, penalties, all those things, interest penalty, and 200% interest, 200 penalty, which we always take to our bed at the end of the day, because we are answerable why so and so form wasn't fined, why so and so tax was not paid, and why are we paying now interest penalty, etc. And scope for better reporting. So when you achieve a milestone, when you have a positive feature, you have the table before you, a wide table before you, a strong pen in your hand, and a clean book before you, that you can report it in a better way, enhancing or adding goodwill and stature for your organization. Now, then what is the value addition in the total value approach? Environmental investments, less costs of any adverse impact because of this. Social investments, less cost of any adverse impacts. Governance, less cost. Now, the net value addition from all these three is the total value of ESG asset. So to give you one example, you have invested in electric vehicle project, abandoning the fossil fuel run vehicle. It is not that electric vehicle is all pollution free. It also has battery component disposal, and then the metal used, it also has its own pollution aspect, but it is less harmful than the fossil fuel run vehicle. So whatever harm is involved in electric vehicle project will have to be deducted when you are considering that value addition from this project is X. Similarly, in the social. So in the name of, let us say, in the name of local reservation or some aspect, you are taking employees from various segments, then you are denying the natural right entitled to other competent person because of your policy or the requirement. So whatever loss you've caused, that needs to be detected. Similarly, the governance. In the name of governance, there could be a system which is in place which could delay or which could pull down a bit of profits, maybe in the short to medium term, but then that has to be deducted, and then you get the value of assets. Now, last but one slide. These are the real challenges, not those what we have seen earlier. How to defray the cost of ESG without burdening the common man. In the name of environmental care, you ban all plastic, you ban all diesel cars, you ban all petrol cars, you ask all the shops to close by 4 o'clock because they are spoiling the environment and birds can't fly, can't flutter. How can a common man live? Suddenly, the 40 rupees what you're paying towards your auto will become 600 rupees in the name of environment. Will it be fine? You cannot dream of a better life in the future if you're losing your present life. Your present life has to be preserved for you to stay alive and enjoy the better life, the so-called and the dreamt better life in the future. So the challenge is how to defray the cost of ESG, how not to gradually abandon existing projects and sectors. It's not that you abandon all the fossil fuel, gaseous emissions, polluting and socially non-compliant, less governed companies. That's easy to say, maybe easy to shut, but you disrupt the whole world's harmony and life existence. We spoke two things, life and finance. Those are the only two things which will threaten common man to the POTA, President of the USA. Anyone will get threatened with these two, not otherwise. So we should gradually shift towards the ESG compliance without disrupting the normal life. Disruption has to be towards positive feature. How to promote high ESG with new compliant establishments? Means ESG compliant establishments. Adherence, we want it to be compliance. How to reform? By modernizing the existing establishments. And how to quantify ESG features with foolproof standards. These are the questions before you. Where are the answers? Here itself. Defray the cost, that's the answer. Gradually abandon the projects, not immediately, that's the answer. Promote ESG, that's the answer. Modernize the existing establishments, don't shut them, that's the answer. Have foolproof standards in your regulations, that's the answer. Now we go to a small computation sheet. I'll run this thanks slide also, and then we go to computation sheet. Okay. So now I take the Excel sheet. I put it very simply. Don't worry. It's a very simple thing. I wanted to actually do a simulation, but I'm sorry I could not find time. Share screen. Then yes. Okay. So I took a simple example. I'll take only 2 minutes, and then I took a simple example. There is an asset. What asset? Maybe normal asset which is yet to see ESG. Is the screen visible, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you. So asset, is it $1 billion, $1 million, crores, lakhs? Doesn't matter. All neutral. Asset 100 rupees or 100 million. Loan 75% is what we achieve because we are corporate finance professionals and we maximize the loan component naturally. Depreciation 10%, we always have 10%, not because it is the rate, it is simple. Tax rate 25, because it is the rate in India now. Loan interest rate, we want to take 10%, but 10 and 10 will confuse, so we have taken 12. And annual loan repayment is the PMT, what I computed. Discount rate 15%. 15% is high, but then in India, as you understand, because our risk-free rate today as we stand is about 7.5, and therefore 15% discount rate is not less, is not high. Terminal growth rate, it could be higher, but I chose to be a bit conservative and took 4%. Now, I've just quickly drew this all I spoke, I did it while talking to our manager who was organizing. I didn't find time to do. So now this is the valuation exercise. To discount, generally we need to take 5 to 8 years unless we have finite life for the asset. So here we chose to take 8 years. Then these are the revenues what are adopted. Then operating costs, they start at 70% and they go down to 60%, which is practical truth in the business. Your operating cost will not remain as a percent on your revenues because you will have economies of scale. And as you purchase materials more in bulks, you enjoy higher discount. And that discount could translate to anything between 2 to 10% also. Therefore, the operating cost, which is variable and should be frozen as a percent on the revenues, will still be flexible and will reduce. Therefore, 70 to 60. Depreciation, I told you the simplicity, 10 simple and adoption is even simple. So 100 rupees was the value of the asset, 10 years or 10%, okay, 10, 10, 10 depreciation. Then sales and general expenses. They'll not be a percent of revenues. They'll be an estimated yearly amount and will have inflation. So it's like my salary. It's not that you'll pay me salary as a percent of the revenue. You'll pay me 1 lakh in a year, next year 1,05,000, then next year 1,10,000, whatever, or maybe 5-10% inflation you'll add and then you'll pay me. But you'll not pay me a percent of revenues. Therefore, they grew disproportionately lower when compared with the operational costs, but proportionately higher over the previous years' periods. Then finance cost. This we computed the schedule. This is the finance cost, interest cost, the 12% thing. So you could see that. This is the PMT. This is the PMT adoption. This is the interest computation on the outstanding balance. This is the principal, which is the difference between EYI, equated yearly installment, minus interest component. This is the closing balance. So the interest cost component comes from that. Then now, regulation says because gentlemen or lady, you are ESG compliant. Therefore, you are entitled to a revenue subsidy of 10% on your revenues, or you are free not to pay the royalty of 10% as a CNRAS on your operations. You pay CNRAS charges, you pay royalty, isn't it? On many of the aspects. So now you are allowed not to pay that, or you are given subsidy that amount. In either of these cases, like RRM, MP, and with and without, in any of these things, this will explain that this is an additional revenue stream for us because we are ESG compliant. Then, what are the profits? Revenues minus operating costs, minus depreciation, minus sales and general management expenses, minus financial costs, plus revenue subsidy is profits. Tax 25%, simple for computation. Then cash flows are profits minus tax plus depreciation are your cash flows. Then discounting factor, we chose 15% as a discounting factor, which you saw there. So 15% discounting factor. These are the present value discounting factors. These are the present value cash flows. So the value of this asset is 1229 billions, millions, lakhs, crores, whatever, less 75, which is the loan. That is the value of the asset. Now, let us think, government said, gentlemen, you are very handsome and you have adopted ESG. Therefore, we give you a benefit of higher depreciation of 20% for this. The asset value rose from 1229 to 1248, means around $20 million value rose because of one regulatory feature which allowed. Then the banker said, oh, beautiful girl, I just love the way you have implemented your ESG feature in all of your assets. And this business will prosper a lot because it is ESG compliant and you are respected as business women and you are entitled to 8% loan only. Now you've seen your business value or the asset value grow by $12 more million. And the government said, in our own interest and to meet our NDCs, we have pledged at COP21 and which we have to demonstrate every year. We have encouraged the ESG compliant companies and it said our 10% subsidy becomes 25. Your business value rises to 1748. And few more things. Discount rate. Investors like Blackstone, BlackRock, Brookfield, or the Goldman Sachs said, we are okay. One of the company from Switzerland wanted to do, or Legging. What do? They are okay. CPP DQ, CPP IB, Mapletree, or Capellan, they are okay for a return of only 6%. Why 6%? If you were to invest in Switzerland, you have to pay in return 3%. You deposit $100 in the bank in Switzerland. At the end of the year, you take back $97 only because you have to pay back to them. There is a negative interest rate there. So someone from Switzerland coming to India and lending will be happy to receive even 3%, 4%. It's a huge return for an economy, what we are talking, having GDP growth rate of 0.80 versus India, which has got a GDP growth rate, normal GDP growth rate of 6.5 today, 8 back then. So he said, I am okay to charge only 5%. Now see where your business stands. $25,729 million is the business value. They learned professionals. I'm sure you would have understood with this example. I'm sorry that I did not put each of these slides separately because the sensation I'm doing at once on the same screen. It would be better if I have done separately and then showed you the impact cumulatively, but lack of time, excuse me. But I'm sure you would have understood what is the change in the value of the asset, the ESG asset, or the inclusion of ESG feature in the asset got the asset this kind of valuation. So now I'm available for any questions and answers.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for a great insight in with respect to ESG and valuation. There are a couple of questions. There are a lot of questions actually, but I'll take only a few since we're short of time. So the first question is, it is believed that BSSR reporting is going to be compulsory from 2022 as per SEBI. So if it is compulsory, then how will it impact?
Yeah. Business sustainability reporting addresses partly CSR, partly SDG, partly ESG. At the moment, while we have to appreciate the business sustainability reporting, it has to evolve a lot more to factor in all of the ESG factors. Therefore, it is not sufficient. It is required, it is appreciated, but it is not sufficient to capture the ESG factors completely.
So one more question is, can ESG be considered as reserves created out of expenditure incurred resulting in incremental revenue due to ESG brand? This way it can be bought in balance sheet as well. And only thing is how to calculate incremental revenue.
I'm sure a lot of accounting engineering would have flown in the mind of our professional who has asked this. This is an amazing concept. I'll elaborate the concept what he said. In fact, this is first time I am also listening this, and it's so amazing. It's just lovable. So our querist states, instead of charging the additional amounts what are being incurred towards the operation of ESG features, allow the business to capitalize them and have an asset, and there has to be corresponding liability. The corresponding liability is not liability, it will have to be like your deferred tax asset, a reserve allowed to be counted as net worth. The asset in the balance sheet on the right side under the assets head is non-existing, but you recognize it. Why? Because it is the environmental contribution, and it needs to have a corresponding entry in your balance sheet on the left side under the liabilities head. For that, our friend says, allow the companies, the business, to recognize it as a reserve, and it should not be just reserve, it should be counted as a part of net worth. Wouldn't this be a fantastic thing to allow businesses? Amazing solution, amazing contribution. I have no, it's not a question, it's in fact a better suggestion. And this is the time I learned this as a possibility. And kudos to the person who got this kind of accounting engineering in his mind, her mind.
So thank you so much. We have a lot more questions, but due to paucity of time, we will have to cut short the session and end it here. So I'm really thankful to you, sir, for sharing great insight with us. It was a learning experience. You shared your experience and you shared everything in so much detail. So we learned a lot. And dear participants, as we conclude this session, we extend a sincere thanks to our distinguished speaker, Dr. Kishore Nuthalapati ji, for his valuable insights. We also express our gratitude to our chairman, CA Hansraj Chuk sir, vice chairperson, CA Preeti Paras Savla ma'am, and the entire support team of ICAI for initiating and supporting this platform for the field of valuation and guiding us. Last but not the least, we would also like to acknowledge and appreciate our audience for dedicating your valuable time and for active participation even on a Sunday. We are eager to meet you again in our upcoming sessions. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir.
Thanks to all of you, please.